This may be the most important 15 minutes I've ever spoken on radio, maybe 20 minutes, who knows. I've been spending 3 days to prepare for this program, and I sat in the chair and I just told Mr. Producer I'm putting all that aside. I've been watching Kamala Harris today, Liz Cheney today, I've been watching the media, Tim Walz today. I do these monologues on Fox, I do multiple monologues every day here on radio. I try and think of different ways to come at the same thing, liberty versus tyranny. But I want to be very clear about what this election's about. And in order to start, I go to my book, American Marxism. And I want to quote briefly Ted McAllister, professor of public policy at Pepperdine University. And he wrote an essay in 2021 titled, Thus Always to Bad Elites. Thus Always to Bad Elites. And what does he mean by that? He said, today we have a very different elite than America did as recently as the 1980s in terms of their nature, goals, ambitions, style, and ways of exercising power. The deepest fact of our time is that America has a bad elite, a mendacious one, whose skills, values, goals, tastes, and types of knowledge are hostile to our nation's inherited cultures and plural people. The new elite that has emerged the last generation or two has no interest in preserving anything but perhaps their own power. They lack historical knowledge and vision, which they supplant by or exchange for the powers of misinformation, transformation, and change. Intoxication by the power possible with emerging technology is inspired by visions that only a deracinated globalist perspective could make attractive. This elite thinks of creative destruction as applied to our culture. As winners in what they imagine to be a meritocratic struggle, they can see nothing of an inherited world worth preserving for their very success. The peculiar characteristics of their evolving power have given to our new elite the soul of adolescent art applied to a global canvas. They lack any experiential or historical ballast to weigh them down, to slow them in remaking everything according to their desires. For them, streamlining power is key to creation, and the annoying obstacles to their new creations are not really checks to prevent tyranny, but rather limitations, unnecessary friction in the headlong rush for fundamental transformation. Now, for this new elite, this new ruling class, the good of free speech has become invisible because for them, free speech is simply friction, resistance to their goals. The elimination of hate speech is the goal, the unimpeachable good that the openness of free speech prevents. In half a generation, listen to this, in half a generation, the work of centuries is undone and the levers of tyranny put in place. This is an election between those of us who believe in Americanism and the ruling class elite. That's why you see Liz Cheney campaigning with Kamala Harris. That's why you see Barbara Comstock, former congresswoman from McLean, Virginia, in those areas, who was a bomb thrower as a staffer on Capitol Hill, who was very conservative before she went to Congress. She turns into a rhino. Now she's a lobbyist. Now she endorses every Democrat and hates every Republican. Because for her, like Liz Cheney and these other so-called Republicans, it's more about the ruling class. It's more about the establishment. It's more about the elitism. It's more about the power center of Washington, D.C. that they do not want affected. That's why Milley comes out with a book effectively calling Donald Trump a dictator, when Donald Trump, in fact, is the most anti-war president in modern history because he disagrees with Milley. And look what Milley did in Afghanistan, and then he lectures us. This guy Esper worked most of his life on Capitol Hill. He was an acting defense secretary. He's another Republican out there trashing Trump. John Bolton, who begged me and others to be Donald Trump's national security advisor. But Bolton thought he would run the country. Bolton thought he should call the decisions, not Trump. And so Bolton has a hate on, just like the others. They believe in what came before. And I don't mean freedom, liberty, a republic. I mean what came before, the 1990s and the 2000s. When Liz Cheney was at Washington's Crossing in Pennsylvania. Washington's Crossing, that horrible winter before the crossing of the Delaware in the Battle of Trenton. She was there where she said about 100 Republicans. Yes, ruling class, establishment Republicans, elitists. Look at who they are. Christie. Look at them. Whitman, the former governor of New Jersey, look at them. They'd be perfectly fine with a Republican who would accept the fundamental transformation of America. They'd be perfectly fine with all of it. But they hate Donald Trump. Why? Because of the way he speaks? No, that has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. We've had a lot of presidents who spoke in different ways. We've had a lot of presidents who had sex with interns. We've had a lot of presidents who were sleazy as hell. Kennedy, Johnson, Franklin Roosevelt, and a hell of a lot more. Yes, we have. What is it that Donald Trump did exactly? What is it? Challenge the election? How dare him challenge the election as if he's a Democrat in 2000, challenging what took place in Florida, as if he's a Democrat in 2004. Challenging that election. As if he's a Democrat in 2016, challenging that election. 2 impeachments, criminal investigations. Multiple indictments, 91 indictments, efforts to put the man in prison, and efforts to bankrupt the man. What is it about Donald Trump that these people fear? What they fear is that he represents we the people in our interests, in our desires. That's what they fear. This ruling class elite includes the American media. It includes these Republican reprobates. It includes Liz Cheney, Barbara Comstock and their ilk, and Milley and Esper and all the rest of them. You're damn right it does. Then they talk the enemy within. Oh, my God, the enemy within. The enemy within. Really? I want to read you a paragraph, and then I'm going to tell you where it's from. You ready? Ready, America? In 1838, Abraham Lincoln gave a speech to the Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois. The subject was citizenship and the preservation of America's political institutions. The backdrop was the threat posed to those institutions by the evil of slavery. Lincoln warned that the greatest danger to the nation came from within. All the armies of the world could crush us. All the armies of the world could not crush us, he maintained, but we could still die by suicide. That was the first paragraph in an article in The Atlantic. You know who wrote that, Mr. Producer? James Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, who attacks Donald Trump on a regular basis. The enemy within was the title of the article in The Atlantic. The enemy within. Abraham Lincoln didn't use exactly those words, but that's effectively what he said, and he's not the only one, as I've explained here. That's right. That's right. He made that speech as a young man in 1838, Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois. I quote that speech in one of my early books. There are enemies within, Marxist Islamists. There are people who want to fundamentally transform America. There are people who want to attack the independence of the Supreme Court, open borders to fundamentally reshape, quote unquote, as the New York Times said, the electorate. There are people that use the Department of Justice because they want non-citizens to vote. There's a political party that doesn't want voter ID because they want fraud. That's right. A political party that wants to eliminate the Electoral College. So 11 blue states will be in charge of the executive branch, the presidency and the vice presidency. That's the enemy within. That's the enemy within. A party, an ideology that doesn't believe in parental rights, that doesn't believe parents should make the final decision on whether the genitalia of their children are changed or not. The enemy within. You're damn right. The enemy within. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, who lies down with Islamists, Jew haters, who seeks their votes. You're damn right. We do have enemies within. Lincoln was right. Jefferson was right. Reagan was right. And Trump is right. Now, Kamala Harris talks about abortion. She did it today. She views you women out there as suckers. You single-issue voters on abortion as suckers. She says Trump wants a national law to ban abortion. He has said the opposite. She said Trump wants to eliminate women's reproductive rights, whatever that means. He's never said that. There are more abortions today than there were before the Dobbs decision. Kamala Harris does not believe in Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade had a trimester system. I've explained this. And in the third trimester, states were free to regulate and even ban abortion. They voted on a law in May 2022 that would allow abortion on demand right into the birth canal. And she chooses a vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, who literally signs a law that eliminates the requirement that doctors save babies through botched abortions. And several babies died on the table in Minnesota. The media are not going to report this. Go look it up. It's all over the internet, and it's true. They're running on lies. And then they tell you that Donald Trump is a danger. January 6th, she said today, all those police officers who were killed, no police officers were killed. Police officers have been killed by leftists, by rioters, by criminals. Police officers were killed in the riots of 2020, as were other people. They never talk about that. Courthouses came under attack. Police precincts came under attack. The violence was horrific. And they stood by and watched. And in the case of Kamala Harris, she supported a fund so that the most violent rioters would go in the front door and out the back door. That's who she is. And finally, they're talking about sex slavery, something I've been talking about week after week after week in this program and on Fox and on the Blaze. Finally. Because it shows up in a website news organization, the Free Press, which I respect. But they're certainly not the first to talk about this. That open border has resulted in massive sex slavery, horrendous sexualization of little kids. That border's open as a matter of policy. Policy! Because of the incompetent, the outrageous ruling class that is organized, that has raised $1 billion to take on Trump, to destroy Trump, to prosecute Trump, to bankrupt Trump, because Donald Trump stands with you. He doesn't need any of this. He doesn't need any of it. Liz Cheney needs it. Kamala Harris needs it. They have nothing else. They've done nothing in their lives. They've created nothing in their lives. And they hope to lie their way back into power. And they're counting on enough suckers among us to do it. Enough suckers among. This election is between a corrupt American-hating ruling class that wants more and more power, that's power-hungry, that will do anything to defeat the one man who's capable of standing up against them. And they are going to smear him, lie about him, character assassinate him, further dehumanize him. Oh, they were so upset of those assassination attempts. Honestly, men and women out there of America, no, they weren't. Crocodile tears for about 14 seconds. Just being honest with you. As they try and character assassinate him right now.